Hello. The title of this sermon is Acts of Balance. And what I will do is I will include the reading that goes with it in the comment section of this video. So if you're interested in the reading, I would encourage you to look at it. It's a really good one. And it helps the sermon it gives you a sense of where the sermon is going. So I'll start. So this stole, which I cannot get straight. It's a bit of a science okay, so I should do the opposite. So this stole, it's very long. I'm sitting down. It's a symbol of pastoral authority. And in our tradition, it's reserved for those who have been ordained as ministers. Now, to be ordained, the very word ordained, is a simple word with a very complicated meaning. It means placed under orders. Now, when I was ordained back in 2014 at a church service in New York, there were two members of the ordination committee who bestowed this stole upon me. Community churches where I served as a student minister. And they had a bit of a hard time with it because I'm very tall and they are not so tall. So I literally had to bend down like very, very low to receive their gift as they placed a stole over my head and onto my shoulders. And to my surprise, I found that the stole was quite heavy, at least heavier than I thought the fabric should be. Heavier than anything that should be made out of fabric, actually. And I only received the stole in the second half of the service. And as I wore it, it seemed to get heavier and heavier. And there was a point in the service where everybody stands and recites a responsive reading. And if there's anything that really signals the transition from aspirant minister to reverend, I think it's that responsive reading. It's where I and the congregation and invited guests get to speak to each other and to really communicate on a visceral level what is actually going on. And in that moment, the stole felt its absolute heaviness. It was very, very difficult to shoulder. My knees felt wobbly. I felt like balance was off just wearing the stole. And I thought in that moment, Daniel, you have to power through this. You can't faint or collapse now. This is what you've been working for all of these years. And after the speeches were all over, it was clear to me that my life as I knew it was changed forever. Not only was I a minister, an outright minister, and had received the title of the Reverend in that moment, but I was marrying an entire institution, the Unitarian Universalist Church. And the apparent weight that I felt in this stole, and that I actually still feel, are the powers, the hopes, the dreams, the history, the future, all being vested in me in that moment. And I showed up to my ordination knowing what an ordination was, only to realize that my understanding was not entirely complete, that I was linking my life to the life of the church in a way that was very public and ostentatious. I was saying that the church and I were joined in holy matrimony, an estate made honorable by the keeping of vows or promises that were made on that day. And I hadn't considered before that I would be marrying the church, so to speak. Now you might be thinking, marrying the church? Daniel, come on, maybe that's taking a metaphor a little bit too far. I thought we were going to hear about the people kind of marriages. That's what I'm listening to this video for. Well, we are going to talk about people kinds of marriages. And I want us to allow for many different kinds of marriage. The obvious two-person kind is our focus for today, but I want us to allow for the possibility of universalized understandings and forms as well. More than anything, I want to celebrate how marriage is one of the ways of deepening spiritual connections through the practice of partnership. We grow in partnership. We grow stronger, wiser, healthier, more loving in the relationships that we have. And that's something worth celebrating. And definitely worth celebrating in marriage. Now, Justice Kennedy's words signaled marriage equality across all 50 states of the United States and overseas territories in June 26 of 2015. And it was a watershed moment for our country. In Kennedy's beautifully expressive language, more like sacred text than like prose, he shares the sentiments of the majority in the case, and he wrote this: "No union is more profound than marriage. It embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people become something greater than they once were." And he definitely reverses the decision to deny marriage to certain Americans and ends simply with, "It is so ordered." It is so ordered. In the order, Kennedy mentions nothing about romance or procreation. He does not limit it to men and women playing particular roles, nor does he couch his argument in the supernatural. Marriage is simply an embodiment of love, a vehicle for fulfillment and human dignity, available to all those who can consent to it. Wow. I mean, that is really, even today I still get goosebumps just thinking about, like, it is, in essence, it ends with the stroke of a pen. Years of discrimination and having humanity denied to people like me. And in our tradition, we lift up the prophetic deeds of men and women in all places and times, which, I quote, "challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love." This is one of our sources of inspiration as Unitarian Universalists, and I'm amazed to have such a powerful example of just such a thing in a legal document. In talking about marriage today, I don't wish to exclude those who do not consider themselves married. I don't wish to exclude those who are happily single, however they've come to that happy singlehood. And I certainly wouldn't want to marginalize myself as a very single person. I have been for quite some time. Nor do I wish to pour salt on the wounds of those who've had marriages end acrimoniously in divorce, separations, or whose spouses have been lost through death or chronic debilitating illness. Marriage for some, and perhaps for too many, does not stir up images of daffodils, rosebuds, nor is it a sweet bastion of love and affection. Marriage might signal hard work, endless compromise, repression, deferred dreams, patriarchy, and self-sacrifice. And while those can be real aspects of marriage, they don't represent the irreducible part, the sine qua non of marriage. The so-called benefits or outward trappings of marriage tend to be glorified in society at large in a way that can be both deafening and tending towards the absurd. Things like do it for the tax benefits, single-family home vacation pictures, never having to say I'm sorry. And I want to add to that noise. Our focus today is on the inward properties, those soul-changing, life-altering aspects that connect us more deeply and offer us fulfillment through love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. I want to lift up the transformative power of companionship and partnership and chosen family, however we choose it. And more than anything, I want us to remember that the work of marriage is holy work. A marriage, whether it lasts for 6 months or 60 years, is always a spiritual practice. And we should value that. And we should celebrate the possibility of practice or even sweaty workout for the soul. That's what marriage is. And openness to the workout will produce muscles like these. You can't see them. Will produce muscles that we never knew we had and cause them to grow bigger through the classic process of destruction, rest, and regeneration. That's how muscles develop. Now, the writers Frederick and Mary Ann Broussat, in their book Spiritual Literacy, Reading the Sacred into Everyday Life, they write that partners in marriage are drawn together by desire and dreams, and that they improvise a relationship to navigate the sometimes treacherous waters of communication, career, finance, aging, and much more. And they call all of this a deeply spiritual endeavor. We can see the spiritual exercise in the life of Maureen and Peter, whose stories are featured in an essay in a book titled Everyday Spiritual Practice, Simple Pathways to Enriching Your Life, edited by Scott Alexander. Maureen and her partner Peter are married and were married in their middle age. They've been together for 10 years, and marriage did not come easy to either of them. They did not have much experience in the trust and compromise, and I think living together that they entered into when they got married. Reverend Maureen, she is a minister, often attends meetings at her church at night, and Peter's a maintenance worker who often works the night shift as well. Their lives are obviously very busy, and some might even say hectic. Yet two things have kept them together. The first thing being their commitment to being married. And the second thing that has helped them bridge the gap of loneliness and longing that often characterizes their day-to-day relationship has been the nighttime habit of praying together before bed. The prayer is not anything formal or complicated. Maureen might lead the prayer one night and Peter the other, and both repeat the prayer that was spoken by the other. So one says a prayer extemporaneously, and then the other person repeats what they heard back as their own prayer. Now, Maureen credits the prayer with vastly improving their relationship over the years. But the thing that I find most fascinating about the prayer is that the prayer is not an end in and of itself, but rather it's a means to an end. You see, Maureen writes that the prayer comes out of their attitude of being intentional about what they do. It comes out of their respect for the little things, and I would say the respect is actually an appreciation for life's simple gifts. And prayer seems to also offer them a sense of routine to their chaotic schedule. So there we have an example of the work of marriage demonstrated in a very real and tangible spiritual practice. Their capacity for love, both giving and receiving love, is increased as a result of working on that spiritual practice in their marriage. And through their impatience, learning to compromise in a healthy way, and their fidelity to their relationship to each other benefits them as human beings, individually and as a couple. For Maureen and Peter, marriage is a school for deepening connections, and every day offers new lessons, sometimes as a joy, other times as a frustration, perhaps many times as a frustration, but all of it offering opportunities for exercise and spiritual practice, and opportunities to grow more fully into their humanity through partnership. And it seems to be working for Maureen and Peter, and that's something worth celebrating. Marriage and dancing actually have quite a bit in common. And of all the spiritual practices that we engage in here at the church, singing, drumming, meditation, even coffee communion during the fellowship hour, of all of it, I think one thing that we tend to miss is the dancing. We tend not to dance. So let's dance more in our relationships. In dancing, there is a give and take as partners move across the dance floor. The entire body is engaged. Masses moving through space, shifting weight from foot to foot, staying balanced and upright, even synchronizing breathing. As you move, drawing imaginary lines across the floor, sometimes a figure eight, sometimes concentric circles. All of it beautiful, a beautiful creation. Marriage, like dancing, involves balance between control and freedom, receptivity and activity, being receptive and being active, coming together and going apart, spontaneity and structure. And one of my favorite styles of dance, Contra, which is an American folk style of dance, involving a dance caller who guides you through the motions and two partners dancing with other partners, other couples. There's a constant communication, sometimes using the eyes, other times subtle changes in pressure, how the hands are grasped, how close the partners hold each other. The closer you go, the faster you go, but don't go too fast or you might get dizzy. And there in the dance, we see the ideals listed by Justice Kennedy in the reading. In the dance, there's an opportunity to embody love, to embody devotion and fidelity to your partner, even sacrifice, and all of it occurring second by second. See, marriages are gyms for the soul, and I see them as ways for us as individuals to grow the better part of ourselves, to experience fulfillment through mutuality. And I hope that you can see marriage as a gym for the soul, filled with equipment to work every kind of muscle. And I think that if we have that perspective on marriage, that we will pursue the exercises that it offers us with renewed energy. I also like to imagine that there is something like a consolation in the unions that do not last as long as we might hope. And that consolation, that hope, is a knowledge that there are different gyms to exercise different parts of our body. In the same way that there are different dances that offer us various ranges of motion. And sometimes we might be in a gym that we're just working our upper body, because that's all the equipment that it has for us. And when it's time for us to work different parts of our body, there's a degree of trust that we might consider having, that we might find that the gym, the place where we can work the parts of our body that need to be worked. And that when the time comes to let go, that we can let go more completely, knowing that we've gotten all the things that we need in the time that we had in that particular location, in that particular gym, or dancing with that particular partner. We can experience the greatest benefits and highest levels of fulfillment in the places that we need to be, in the partnerships that we need to have. And, it takes some courage to hold on, and it also takes courage to let go when the time comes. But we should do this knowing that all of these exercises contributes to our growth and allows us to experience the better parts of ourselves, to unleash the better parts of ourselves. So our relationships, marriages, have something very special to teach us. That we have something to give, and that there are many more things that we are able to receive. The joining of two people or even two entities makes those two people or those two entities, that high calling, it makes them stronger. We're able to do so much more together than we are when we are separated. So whether you are married or partnered to a person, an institution, or a higher cause, know that your relationships matter. Celebrate the possibility for fulfillment in relationship. And let's keep our balance through dancing. Blessed be, and amen.